And these tools are, the power of these tools is growing so rapidly that we're going to be seeing as much change in a day than we've seen in a year pretty soon. And it's accelerating beyond that. It's just mind-boggling. So the tools that are bringing us the new drug developments, the new diagnostics, the new surgical techniques, the new robotics, the remote control surgical techniques that we're using, the development of nutraceuticals, new foods, so forth and so on, are going to be 1,000 times more powerful in 10 years. Now, what we've done so far, most of the growth that we've had so far was trial and error in, let's say, drug development, but it goes beyond that. In all the sciences that lend themselves or lead toward age reversal. Most of this has been trial or error. It's been we build upon previous successes and previous failures, and it's one step at a time, laying one brick on top of another. Well, now we're able to do those same those same techniques, that same research, the same modalities in silico. That means we're able to do computer simulations of what it took us so many, many years and decades to do in the lab. We're able to now do some of this in days or minutes or even seconds that took us years or in some cases to do things that were previously impossible to do by hand.
Just a quick question. That's fascinating and it's exciting, but yet how does the computer in this scenario respond the way human biology and the cells respond, since the computer's not human?
Well, that's a very good question, Kim, and the answer is biotechnology is rapidly evolving and rapidly becoming computer technology, and the reason for that is we have the Human Genome Project, and we now know that the humans have roughly about 23,000 genes in our genome. And each one of these genes is essentially a computer program. And we're now finding out how to reprogram these genes. So biotech is now very quickly becoming infotech, and we're going to be able to simulate the entire human body, the functions, the biochemistry. Someday we're going to be able to simulate that completely with computers, and we're getting there now. We're doing parts and pieces of that right now.
Why isn't the public more versed and aware of these huge exponential advances that are taking place, obviously, within the milieu of life extension and of age reversal? But why is it so difficult for some of these breakthroughs that have to do with the law of accelerating returns and exponential growth taking so long to get to the public? It's within your realm and your associates' realm, but for the public, these huge exponential leaps would be very relevant because we're in the dark ages mentally.
Well, that's a good question as well. It takes a long time typically for people to change their paradigms, their way of thinking. We're stuck in, we've been thinking pretty much the same way since the beginning of time. And we've got memes, we've got ideas deeply ingrained in ourselves that, and in society, that things happen a certain way. They've happened this way for thousands and thousands of years. We've been advancing very, very slowly. We've been advancing linearly. It took us 1,500 years to double the rate of knowledge that we've had in this country. For the first doubling took 1,500 years. Now it's taking, depending on who you talk to, 2 years. Some people say as fast as 1 year. Well, this has all happened very recently, and it's a big step to take people out of their comfort zones. We're starting to recognize, we're seeing advances in, let's say, computer games and simulations and communications devices, cell phones, and things like this, we're starting to see those advances translate themselves into biotech advances. And people really don't look for and even try to understand why things happen or how things work. They look for benefits and conclusions. And how many of us really even know how an automobile works? All we know is we get upset when ours doesn't, or a refrigerator, or a cell phone, or a computer. But we're very quick to be able to learn how to take advantage of these technologies and how to use them and incorporate them into our daily lives. The medicine is just a little bit behind, but it's rapidly catching up to the unregulated computer industry. So I don't know if it's necessary for people to understand why and how. I think it's just necessary for them to be able to recognize what it's doing for them. And there are tremendous benefits, and more importantly, it's important for them to recognize the fact and understand the fact that reversing aging might be right around the corner. Our plan is to do it by 2029. And all the things that you've been talking about prior to this, Kim, you talked about some of the breakthroughs in nutrition and even exercise. I'm not sure if you got into that or not, but certainly some of the the telomeres and some of the other things that you've been discussing. These are very important steps that we should all incorporate into our lives to keep us alive as long as possible, to open up the window of opportunity for us to be alive and well when these magical technologies start to manifest themselves and make it possible for us to be able to reverse our aging process. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have a lot of people who continue their bad habits, their unhealthy habits, and instead of losing maybe 10 or 20 years from their lives because they instant gratification in smoking and overeating and some of the other bad habits, laziness, would cost them. Instead of losing 10 or 20 years, now they may lose the opportunity to have an endless, at least an open-ended chance for extreme youth and longevity. It's a huge difference right now where people used to follow healthy habits, which, let's face it, they're a little bit tough to do. It's just not the natural. It's just not a following the path of least resistance to eat well, to exercise properly, to not smoke, to reduce your stress. These things go a little bit against the grain. They take a little bit of effort, not as much as most people think, but they do take some effort. And that effort used to be able to extend people's lives somewhat. It would extend their later years. They'd be healthier in their later years, but they would be extending their elderly years. Now, suddenly, we see the opportunity, the light at the end of the rainbow, to actually be able to reverse the human aging process, to recapture our youth. And unfortunately, some of us are going to be part of the last generation to die from aging. And others of us, fortunately, are going to be part of the first generation to be able to live indefinitely and youthfully and healthy.
On your website, it says Maximum Life Foundation, where biotech, infotech, and nanotech meet to reverse aging by 2029. So I love the vision of that.
Well, thank you. And we recognized that at our first conference in the year 2000, and that's been corroborated several times since. And I got into the biotech and infotech already. Nanotech or nanotechnology, and in this case, nanomedicine, is specifically for aging, which is nanotechnology for the listeners who really aren't up to speed on what nanotech is.
Right, which is what I want you to explain: A, nanotechnology, and B, nanotech related to medicine.
Yes, the nanotech related to medicine is the holy grail when it comes to age reversal. And nanotechnology or nanoengineering or nanotechnology is engineering at the molecular or even the atomic level. In other words, building from the ground up. Nature does this all the time. An acorn falls off a tree. It takes roots and it grows a new tree by building from the ground up, molecule by molecule. Human beings, all animals are formed that way when eggs and sperm fertilize. and we start growing one cell at a time. Well,